I'll tell you which morphing I can never quite believe is so successful is in Terminator 2, which is when the T-1000 is screaming in the vat of molten metal, and it is changing shapes with what seems to be pieces of molten metal going in front of all these characters, like liquid, and then it's still managing to do the morphing. So ILM either just solved that with some incredible frame-by-frame work, or they were really clever about adding extra splashes. It's so convincing. It totally looks like they're actually transforming between characters there. I've always loved the morphing in that final sequence.
Welcome to the VFX Notes Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by ILMVFX and their brand new Introduction to Comfy UI for VFX course.
Become the compositor studios can't afford to replace. Easily harness the full power of Comfy UI using ILMVFX's Introduction to Comfy UI for VFX course. Taught by Doug Hogan, a VFX artist with 18 years of VFX experience and countless credits within the VFX industry. Within this course, you'll learn how to install Comfy UI, quickly generate clean plates, create utility passes, speed up set extensions, create 3D models from images, and so much more. You'll also get free EXR footage, workflows, and cheat sheets. So visit actionvfx.com to sign up today and become the compositor studios want to hire.
And we have a special treat for the VFX Notes Podcast listeners. Use the code CONFY10VFX to get an exclusive 10% discount for this course. And now on to the show.
You are much better at it than I am. You should have done this. Hugo, we're in the bunker.
Yes.
Surviving a nuclear blast from a future war. Welcome, everybody, to the VFX Notes Podcast and Hugo's Bunker, which I love being in and amongst the action here. There's just so much visual effects history, actually, to look around. I love it. And we're actually going back many years today as part of our Rise of AI Robots series to talk about Terminator 2, Judgment Day with no E.
No E. What do you mean? Oh man, I can't believe we're talking about this movie. This is probably, I would say, the most influential film in visual effects in probably as much as Jurassic Park, maybe, probably.
Easily.
Yeah.
And one of the very few perfect films out there. A perfect film, right? Like, I'm not actually joking. I'm not actually kidding.
Well, we'll kind of have to talk about that. It's okay, we're going to talk about that. But first, we just wanted to, first of all, prove that we are in the same room. You see, we're in the same room. Because people keep asking that.
Okay, Hugo, you better tell the world what you think of James Cameron's Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
So, I was obsessed by this film. Like, when I was young, this was a really important film for me because, I was really young. I was still on even before university. It was 91, so I was a teenager, really, when this film came out.
Yeah, we were like 11 and 12 years old,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. And I must say, I didn't saw the first one. I went to the cinema to see the second one directly. And then there was like a Mega Drive game, which was like a shooting game with like a gun, a menacer. I still have the game somewhere over there. And I have the gun still, and I can still play the game. It's really hard, the game. And so I was obsessed with Terminator. I thought, I'm really sure that Terminator 2 is probably one of the reasons why I am in the industry. I'm sure that it's one of the reasons why I pursue a career in visual effects. Because it was out of the world, like out of this world. When I saw it the first time, and then I saw it on VHS, and then I saw it on DVD, and then I saw it on Blu-ray, and I kept seeing it over the years. And it was a movie that it was just pivotal for me. But I don't know, man. I researching to this podcast, because over the years I've watched all the. I don't have the VHS version here, but this is the first DVD I ever got for Terminator 2, which is the Artisan edition from 2000, which is an American version. It has like 6 hours of extras.
Wow.
It has a lot of extras, and all these extras are not even in the Blu-ray. They've now made a 4K version and made a 3D version, and they've kind of stripped down the extras. So it's only a few extras, and unfortunately the Terminator 2 version is like upscaled, AI upscaled and denoised, and it's terrible. It's just absolutely horrible. I even think the DVD looks better. So I was obsessed with this film, and I have books, and I have, of course, the Cinefex magazine as well.
Incredible.
It was an incredible magazine. It's number 47. You should really try to get one. And they're not very expensive on eBay, so you can probably get it there. But so I was obsessed. And researching to this podcast, I went back and I watched the first Terminator again. And then I watched the second Terminator in a space of 2 days. I watched both of them.
Right.
The first one, I think, is a masterpiece. It's like... and I was quite late to the first one. I think I only saw the first one when I was like 16 or something, years after the second one. And I think the first one is like a masterpiece. It's like this really gritty movie, really low budget, really hardcore action movie, a lot of chases. It's just a simple movie, a really simple movie, super, super independent movie. And I thought it was extraordinary. And now watching the second one, it's been like almost 10 years since I've seen the second one. I don't know, man. I don't think it has aged as well. I still think the visual effects are mind-blowing, and I still think it's probably the most influential visual effects movie ever made, and the visual effects still stand up to the test of time. But as a movie itself, I don't know. I just feel that it's a bit dated, and the tempo of the movie, I was struggling with it. It was a bit boring at some points. I just felt that the movie has not aged well for me. That was at least my feeling watching it in 2025. And I know this is going to be controversial because everyone thinks it's a perfect movie, but I just maybe go back and watch it and try to watch it again. Because I know a lot of people haven't watched it in a while,
It's rare, Hugo, that you're completely wrong, but in this instant, you are completely wrong.
I know.
The film
I understand.
is probably... I have a lot of favorite films, and people know I love Speed, and Blade Runner. I could just watch Blade Runner every single day. Terminator 2 is probably the film I have seen the most ever. And I think in the age of, when we didn't all have DVD players, I probably, if that was on TV, I just stopped whatever I was doing
to
watch it. And then when we had DVD players, I would, a bit like I've done in the past with some Star Wars films, I would just find my key favorite scenes and watch it. If not, watch the whole film again, right? And then when it became something you could see on YouTube, clips on YouTube, I regularly watch clips from Terminator 2 on YouTube. I completely agree the first film is a masterpiece, considering James had no money, right? And produced this
incredible
thing,
how he made it. It's incredible.
It's scary. It's like a horror film, really, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
And it was obviously this amazing discovery of Arnold and Linda Hamilton as well. Like, holy moly! Like, I still think about that film as well. And in fact, I think I have Terminator 1 nightmares. So that's how influential the film is. But has there been a sequel as good as Terminator 2? Really? And not Empire Strikes Back? Okay.
The Godfather 2 is better than the first one.
Right.
So yeah.
I just think he went somewhere with it that was different.
No, I agree, and
Yeah.
I'm happy that he did, because I don't think he should have done the same thing again. So it's good that he made the risk. I don't know, like I just had a hard time watching it now in 2025. It was the first time that I felt like this with this movie. Maybe perhaps because now, I don't know, maybe I'm used to other films and I'm used to films being done in a different way. Tempos are different now. And I really watched the movie with no flourishes of my younger self thinking the film is amazing. I tried to watch the film in a constructive way, trying to really understand if the film is a good piece of filmmaking. And I just felt the film is good, but I don't think it's as good as the first one. That's the thing. I don't believe it's as good as the first one. That's my problem. I felt like the first one is this mystical, really strange movie. A lot of weird things happen on it, and it has all this mystery that you have no idea what's happening, and it's really short and contained, and you can kind of see that it really helped the film not having a lot of resources, because the film is so creative as well.
That does tend to happen with a very successful piece of filmmaking or a book or anything really, that it doesn't answer every question, so the audience answers it in their own minds. Yeah. And then a prequel or a sequel will often fill in the details with too much information. Yeah. I just think because T2 turns it on its head, which is have the baddie be the goodie. Yeah. And yes, you knew that from the trailers, I expect, in 1991, but it was still a bit of a surprise, I'm sure, for some audience members.
Yeah, because people weren't sure really, the trailer.
I'm convinced that makes the sequel so different from its originator that it's actually, you can just think of it as a different film.
Yeah. And
I mean, apart from anything else, I just love the structure of this film, which is that it doesn't stop. There's a pause moment when they're at the encampment, collecting themselves and getting some firearms and whatnot, until Mum runs away and tries to kill Miles Bennett Dyson. Yeah. But
and becomes the Terminator herself. That's what she becomes.
Yeah, but there's a pause there. But think about every other moment in this film is like something happening, and it just propels itself along, right? Yeah. It's probably a reason I love Speed. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Then I think I must mention here, I got obsessive with how some 1980s and 90s films depicted Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Speed, again, okay. Sorry.
This isn't a podcast about Speed. Is that what it is? Sorry, that's what we're doing.
But Heat.
Yeah.
And yes, all the sort of 80s action films as well. But there is something about that particular period in the history of Los Angeles and movie making that is just so raw and dirty and grimy, and you don't quite get that as much anymore, partly because it's not actually as dirty and grimy.
Yeah,
and you just don't. Like it's not on film.
It's like New York. New York is also not as it used to be in the 90s. Yeah, that's what you mean.
My favorite shot in Terminator 2 is not even a visual effects shot. I think it's pretty much one of the opening moments where the camera is on the traffic of a particular LA freeway, and there's a bit of music. It goes ding. And it's just, this is humanity, the rat race.
Yeah.
And, James Cameron is just building something up about society. I mean, some of the criticism of T2 is that it's not that subtle in its messaging, right? Yeah. Which is humanity is going to destroy itself. Even the T-800 says it to John Connor. John says, "We're not going to make it, are we?" When the two kids are fighting with the guns. And Arnie says, "It is in your nature to destroy yourselves." That's what the film's about.
Yeah.
But I don't know that at the time and since, maybe you don't have to be so subtle about those things. That is what's happening. Gun violence is the thing. Yeah. Humanity hating each other for no real reasons is the thing, right? And then on top of that, the idea of technology taking over and us destroying ourselves because we rely too much on artificial intelligence and technology. They're clearly themes of Terminator 2.
Yeah.
But then add to that this is essentially also just a film about a boy and his robot.
Yeah.
Right? Like a relationship.
Yeah.
I just think it works. And maybe it shouldn't work on paper because it's a bit hacky, tacky, but it to me it totally works. And then let's put on top of that the gloss of James Cameron filmmaking with moving cameras, explosions, animatronics, visual effects, miniature, like just everything, like literally everything. It's just a film that I can't stop thinking about. Mm-hmm. And that's probably what makes it great. But I also just love the storytelling as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you really see it on the screen. I mean, at the time it was the most expensive movie ever made. You know, they spent like $100 million making that movie. It was a huge gamble, and it's all very murky how this film kind of went from conception until the end, because the rights, there was a huge battle rights between Terminator 1 and 2.
Right.
And so for 7 years they were really not being able to do the sequel, between Corolco and between like I can't remember the name of it was Corolco, and then there was a couple of other studios involved. And so there was and Madagascar as well. There was a bunch of problems with the rights for the Terminator 2. And so when it finally came along to do the film, they got the rights, but they, as James Cameron says on the documentaries, they only had 20 months to do the entire thing, from starting a script, making the script, making the concept, filming, visual effects, and delivery. They did the whole thing in 20 months, which is like unheard of, and also especially for the type of visual effects they had to do. And they only spent like 8 weeks making the script. So the whole thing was a bit rushed. We already know that you love it, and I'm not enjoying it as much now. I don't know, man. I feel whenever there's future and getting back to the future and getting back to the past, it's always really murky to solve. I'll give you an example. Like Connor sends the Terminator back in time to save him as a kid so that he lives, but he's already alive in the future, and he sends back the Terminator to save himself, but he's then alive. But then also his parent, his father, is the dude that he was friends with, but he sends him back, and then because of that he becomes a person. So if he dies, then he's not born, but he still exists. This is really murky, but it's really complicated.
Sure.
It's really complicated.
This is why Chris Nolan often has a line in his time travel films, don't think too hard about it. And then you just move on. But actually...
I started thinking about it. That's the problem.
I love the incongruency that creates, which is...
I know.
It's a mind fuck, right?
I can't whether it can work. About it now.
Right, okay.
Because I'm now stuck with that. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, how is this solved? How can this be resolved? I don't know. I haven't watched the movie in a long time since I watched it here for the podcast. So, I saw it twice last week, and I saw the audio commentary of James Cameron, the writer, and then I saw the other audio commentary, which is the one that has 20-something people involved. Which, by the way, I really must say this is unheard of. Like on this commentary, you have people from the props, you have people from makeup, you have people from the animatronics. There's 20-something people involved in this commentary. I don't think I've ever seen an audio commentary that involves so many people from different departments on a film.
It's good.
So it's a really good really good audio commentary. It's still possible to hear it on the new Blu-ray. So it's not just the old one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched this film with attention, because it rarely goes on TV here in the UK. I've never really seen it in the cinema again since I was a kid. I think that before this podcast that we are doing, I think must have been at least 10 years since I've seen it.
It's a liquid metal cyborg. You go. I mean, I'm not
I know.
sure it's meant to make sense.
I know.
Let me just say this though. Few films also have the effect of getting into societal zeitgeist. Like Jurassic Park is there, and Godfather is, and I think Blade Runner is in a weird way now. Terminator 2 is there as a sci-fi future film. Look, some of Arnie's other films are too, and it's not just because of I'll Be Back, right? Yeah. It's the themes, and it's the success of the film as well, that people have just seen it. People will immediately think of cyborgs and think of Terminator 2, you know. So there is something about this film that works because it also is very relatable somehow. Yeah. And that's because it has the mother caring for the son, and the son, the boy and his robot, you know, like father figure. Like there's really relatable things in here, even if they're a bit sappy sometimes, right? Like I feel like I'm taking away a little bit, Hugo, from what you're saying is like, it's a bit corny, this film.
But you know, the themes of the film, and that's why we're doing this season, the season of robots and AI, are completely modern and completely up to date to what we are living now. I mean, the whole thing of Terminator, the whole thing of Cyberdyne, the whole thing of Judgment Day, we're living through it. We're living through it now.
As a cautionary tale.
Exactly, as a cautionary tale. Didn't mean the nuclear blast, but what I mean is like the way that AI is taking over our lives and robots are taking our lives, which is exactly what happened in the movie. Like, we always hear... I mean, you get more information if you, for example, watch the special edition. There has more context. But you can kind of see that it's kind of where we are going to, where they are replacing... It turns out they started replacing... Cyberdyne started replacing the defense system and started replacing the hospital, started replacing a lot of the things, which is what we are kind of doing now. But at some point, it became self-aware. So it's a bit of a different story, of course, because I don't think it will happen like that. But it's definitely a really relevant movie. And I think most of James Cameron's filmography is like that. And maybe the only exception is True Lies, maybe. Because if you look at all his movies, always have these themes. The mechanical, the nature, it's always that. Avatar is like that as well. You know, Aliens 2 was like about that as well. This is about that as well. I think is the struggle between machine and man and nature versus humanity has always been a topic that is tackling.
I mean, make no mistake, I'm no conspiracy theorist at all. Yeah. But I am convinced there will be an event that won't wipe out humanity.
But it will be,
there will be something
that will change things.
That will replicate what happens in this film, which is in a panic, they try to pull the plug. You know, like I'm just convinced. We probably have already had that. We've probably had that and not known about, you know, some crazy event that's nearly happened or happened. And I just love that takeaway. Yeah. And that's before all the sparks and amazing stuff in the film.
Yeah. No, the movie asks a lot of really important questions and it shows it.
I think that's right. So moving on from the story points, visually, this film is just so exciting in some of the imagery that James Cameron has produced, and the DOP Adam Greenberg too, right? Yeah. But you kind of can't talk about this film without immediately talking about visual effects and why it's so pivotal, right? And I'm just going to say the kind of obvious reason is that this crazy character, the liquid metal T-1000, could only be achieved, or we would only think it was real, if it felt photoreal on screen. And until then, it was kind of only photoreal as an effect on screen via puppets, stop motion, great optical compositing and whatnot. but you would never have got this liquid metal, reflective, oozy, animated, blobby thing to be as photoreal without where ILM had got to with computer graphics. And even then, it was, of course, early days. So what I'm saying is, the one reason this film is so memorable is that they nailed the computer graphics visual effects work. And if they hadn't, I think we wouldn't be here talking about it.
No,
right?
and
So,
James Cameron even talks about that, saying that on The Abyss, he could get away with it if it failed, the CG.
Yes.
He could have just done cutaways or could have done POVs.
Yes.
And he could have, maybe it would even been interesting because you would have never seen it or whatever. But this is not possible.
Yeah.
Like if this
all the
doesn't
things
work,
he wanted it to happen, like the helicopter scene and just everything.
there's no backup plan.
Yeah.
There's no backup plan. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
you're gonna dress someone in a silver spandex suit. It's not gonna happen.
And I just want to pause on that and make it super clear that an Abyss, obviously ILM was responsible for those pseudopod scenes in the Abyss, and so it was seems like a clear jump to Terminator 2. But there was only a couple of those shots in the Abyss.
Yeah.
And there's only a small amount of digital visual effect shots in T2.
Yeah.
But it was a big jump at the time.
Yeah.
The other thing is ILM had still, and would be still for another decade or so, a miniature house, an optical effects house, right? So they had developed, by the time of Terminator 2, ways of not only realizing this CG stuff, but taking film, scanning it, doing the thing to the plates and adding a CG character, including with digital compositing, but then outputting that back onto film.
Yeah.
So all these steps, not just the CG animation, which is what everyone remembers with Terminator 2, but all these other steps were pivotal in making it look just like they'd gone out and shot the T-1000, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you and I know that, and people in the industry probably recognize it. But I think without all those other steps that ILM had pioneered, we wouldn't also be here talking about the visual effects of
there
the
weren't, and those pioneering steps are the leading steps to all the other pipelines we've now take for granted.
Yeah.
Because they've made them up. You know, the concept of scanning the film, like you said, but also the concept of taking the measures of the lens and taking the height of the lens and making sure they knew what lens they were using and what distortion they were using and making sure they had reference photography of the set.
Match
and
moving.
all those
everything.
steps that we now, as a visual effects supervisor, we know, okay, I'm going to go there and do some measures and I'm going to have a gray ball and I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that. All these things started, the genesis comes from this film where they had to come up with the stuff because they were basically making this up as they went. I mean, they still in the beginning of the film, when they started producing, they weren't sure if this was even possible.
No.
They weren't completely sure.
No. Definitely the Abyss was the thing that said, okay,
Maybe.
we now have some tools.
Yeah.
And they were rudimentary tools,
Yeah.
as in RenderMan and also Alias and a few other things. We have some tools and we have a couple of artists that can do it.
Yeah.
But we need to invent more tools.
Yeah.
And we need to solve all this scanning and digital compositing and ingest and output to make it look good.
Yeah.
You know, now that's not to say also that older techniques weren't used by ILM and also the other vendors on the film, which we'll talk about. But just to like deal with the central character who we all have to believe
That exists
and
because it's the villain, and he does dialogue, he moves, he does things, and people really need to understand that this is not just some artists saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna give it a go." There was a massive investment by ILM to try to make this happen. I mean, it's so cool that we now watch these old Blu-rays and they talk about budgets, which is incredible because we never get to know that. And apparently they spent $5 million making this character, this liquid metal character. And you kind of think, oh, that's a lot of money. Oh, they were really well paid. Well, they spent like $500,000 in software, and they spent like $3 million in silicon graphics. They bought like 11 silicon graphic computers, really massive ones, and then they bought like another 15 smaller silicon graphics. Like the investment, the company itself was doing such a risk, but like spending almost $3 million just in equipment, software and development, and then salaries, just to see if this could work out. And it could have failed. It could have completely failed.
Yeah.
And it's just, this is like the beginning of it. And I have to give the hat to them, because this is pioneering stuff. It's like, if they didn't do this jump of leap to faith, they didn't do this investment, if they didn't thought, oh yeah, let's give it a go, we wouldn't have had this film. And maybe the visual effects would have been a different world or a different story, really completely different story. And maybe Jurassic Park wouldn't have happened as it did. You know, would have been different, you know, if this step didn't happen.
Yeah, I think ILM is in the news a lot lately because of Light and Magic documentary, and they're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. And we often talk about the tools, you know, and they did make amazing strides with innovation in tool sets and programming and software development. But what we don't always talk about is the confidence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Although they didn't know they could pull it off, doing T2 probably meant that Spielberg was confident when he eventually saw some ILM digital dinosaur tests. He was confident that ILM could pull it off, right?
Yeah.
And just confidence inside ILM itself.
Yeah.
To be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's all brand new at the time.
And the huge leap of faith for you to go to the investors and say, okay, guys, I need $3 million to buy computers. And like, you need how much to do computers? It's
the investors would have been George Lucas. But
I know, but you know what I mean? Like it's like, it's a huge leap of faith, like spending so much money and on untested technology, things that they didn't even really knew how it works. I mean, you see that on the Light and Magic documentary where, Dennis Mirren, he goes in a sabbatical to try to learn a bit about computers, and he's not even really sure how to do it, and he's like reading books and trying things and experimenting things. It's such a cool thing, because we just don't live through this anymore. Yeah, this just doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, I would say a minor forgotten thing at ILM was, and I've sort of mentioned it already, which is they were an optical house, miniatures, great optical compositing, and creature stuff as well, right? They did, because of films like Willow and The Abyss and T2, they did have a computer graphics group. Yeah. So they realized, things needed to change. Yeah. And it just was small and self-contained and just got bigger and bigger and bigger as the projects realized that you could do it. But there was a lot of foresight into, we're going to be using computer graphics now in visual effects. Let's have a dedicated group. And then what they ultimately also did was hire brilliant people. Yeah. Brilliant people that were programmers or early animation people. They nowadays, yes, we use tools off the shelf, and they're also used by brilliant people. But some of these people on T2 were writing the tools to do what we now call, say, projection mapping things like that, right? So like, what, or the challenge that you have with enveloping and the way bones, CG skeletons kind of intersect with each other. Well, ILM solved it with a cheat called BodySock. But no one else was doing that. So maybe things were being solved in different ways.
So few people in the world even had the skill set to do this. So it must have been a huge challenge even to find a group of people that could do this. Because the computer graphics departments, they were quite taken over by by video games. I mean, a
Right.
lot of the computer nerds and the computer really experts and really advanced programmers were working in the video games industry.
True.
So it must have been really hard to find even people that could, like talent, because you need basically a scientist, like an MIT guy or a mathematics dude or a programmer, and then that with an artistic side. So it has to be this kind of like really strange mix of the two brains, because this is like such a small team. You know, they only had like 35 people on this team to do these visual effects. So it's a really tiny team.
I think you've hit that is dead right what you said, and I actually have this crazy thing I did a couple of years ago called the Tech of T2, and it's available on beforesanafters.com. You can also actually get it as an ebook, and you can get it for free if you sign up to the Befores and Afters newsletter. That's not really a plug, but I'm just saying it's worth. What it is an oral history of some of the tech that ILM developed for T2. And it's not exhaustive, because I feel like you should go to Cinefex for really fine detail. But what out of that, all those interviews I did, these people were from different places. They weren't just computer scientists or comp-sci people. They were traditional animators, or they were, they just come from lots of different areas. And with T2, Dennis Murin was an old school VFX supervisor who and had worked on The Abyss, obviously, and Young Sherlock Holmes, and had touched CG in certain ways. But he was not the expert in the room.
No.
In terms of CG. On T2, they had people like Mark Dupay, and they had Steve Williams, Spaz Williams, and then they just had all these incredible people in the CG group. And it's hard to mention them because I feel like I'd be leaving people out.
Yeah, of course.
Right. But
some of them are super famous now.
Well, Stefan Fangmeier or see, here we go. This is the trouble that you start forgetting people. But people have gone on to work for NVIDIA and Unreal, Epic.
The pioneers of this industry, really,
they're just
to be honest.
the legends.
Some of them had companies themselves, others became VFX providers, others opened their own companies, and others became CEOs of companies. It's really like the beginning of the modern era of visual effects.
Yeah.
And some of these people are still working today in the industry. Which is, and you see them on these documentaries, really young, like teen, almost like 20-year-olds, like on the computer doing things, and now you know them so well, and they're so famous. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, but if you ever get a chance to do a bit of a look at the credit list on IMDb for Terminator 2, and then click on where these people have gone, it's incredible, actually. So definitely do that.
Yeah.
But just to talk a little bit more about the T1000, Hugo, we should mention Robert Patrick, right?
Yeah.
That is probably the other reason the T1000 works so well.
Yeah.
He's got this base performance in human. I don't even know how to describe what Robert Patrick does to make it feel so menacing.
Yeah.
But he just has something that he does, right?
Yeah. And it's really well made from him as an actor, because it's really difficult to outstage Arnold Schwarzenegger, He's a big dude, fucking huge. I mean, how are you going to outstage him?
Yeah.
But he's so menacing that he actually, when you look at them side by side, you can believe it. You believe it because he looks so evil.
Yeah.
He looks so focused. He never blinks. It's so weird that they practice to never blink. It's just a bizarre thing that they never blink. And he really brought a really cool acting ability into this entire thing. And man, this actor, like Robert, went through the ringer to this thing, because he was doing scanning, and he did like animation tests, and there's these really famous footage of him with the grid painted on his body for animation tests, which was really smart. I mean, this is like the advent of mocap, really.
Right. I mean, it didn't think or couldn't use motion capture, or it didn't really obviously exist in a way that would be useful. So instead and the ILM had done it a few times already on some projects because it helps with filming someone from multiple angles with witness cameras, but then also tracking the body. And that's exactly what they would do, is get Robert Patrick to walk through a scene. And then I think there's a really famous sort of story about this, which is by tracking his movement like that, they inputted an old football injury into the CG version of the T1000. Yeah. Because, of course, Robert Patrick would have been limp. Tiny, I think. But
very tiny. It's a very subtle thing that he does with his hip. Yeah. You know, so, no, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And he looked so happy doing it as well. Because, you know, it was the chance of a lifetime to be part of T2, Terminator 2. I mean, he loved the first movie, but he was so out of his depth. He had no idea what they were doing. He was like, you know, the interviews, he's like saying, I don't know what this is, but you know, it's cool. I don't know, like they make it work. I don't know how they make it work. And it's so funny for him to be talking about that. Yeah. But those shots, I don't know, like the process also came around as becoming. Give an example with this really famous shot where he comes out of the fire. You know, I think it's the most famous shot of Terminator 2. Like the entire thing on this film is that they've invented a pipeline for this to happen. You know, like they kind of worked out that they needed it's such a simple process these days that we don't even think about it. We shoot the plate first with the fire, and then we shoot Robert there walking as a reference, and then we shoot a clean plate, and then we shoot extra plates for reflections with something that would be chrome, like to help the CG, and then you shoot all of this on a VistaVision plate, so that you have extra resolution, and so that you have the ability to maybe fake the cameras a bit, so you don't have to have always tracking, so that you can then do some 2D kind of movement inside the plate. All these things were thought through for this film. They came up with it. You know, like no one has come up with this before, this process.
I think they even had a rig on set to help with triangulating the match move, right? Yeah. That was part of that shot. Yeah. I think that's one of my favorite scenes from the film as well. What I really love about that sequence is it shows the various stages of the T1000, which was a very clever thing James Cameron and perhaps ILM and any concept designers came up with, which is there's lots of different stages of him, right? There's Robert Patrick police uniform stage. Yeah. There's a liquid metal man that's a bit closer to Robert Patrick. Then there's more like the Gen Man, we would call it now. And then there's the goo, more pseudopod, probably missing a few. But because they had those different stages, and you occasionally morph between them, but not actually that often, it meant you ILM and James Cameron and even Stan Winston stuff could concentrate on something when it was in that form. Yeah. Right? There was never really a time when you see it all in one, all of them go through those stages. So I thought it was a clever staging way of dealing with the different forms of the T1000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a quite long shot as well, and it's like a really, like the camera moves and it comes out of it, and it's.
If you ever go to ILM, they have the maquettes. I think they're also at the Academy Museum in LA, but they have the different maquettes of the different T1000 stages.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, that was pretty normal back then to like do sculpts of creatures, you know, that would become digital creatures. Sometimes it was for digipen scanning of them. But really, it was so the artists could stand there, like work on their and look at it, right,
and check if it was properly working or not.
It's just like looking at amazing visual effects history when you look at those maquettes.
It's yeah.
Do you want to talk about another amazing shot with the T1000? Is that I think it's called Hand Through Bars. And it's basically when he's not hand through bars, it's face through bars.
First, yeah.
And it's when he tries to get through the locked door, bar door in the hospital, and he can't come through because of the gun, so he just pushes his face through.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just ridiculously amazing, right? And I just sort of can't believe someone like Jim Cameron can imagine that scene and then think, oh, they'll solve, they'll work out how to solve it.
How do they even solve it?
I mean, how would you do it without computer graphics, right?
You wouldn't.
You'd have to do a soft fade or some kind of...
Or you would have to do it by drawing or by painting or by...
Or a close-up on a prosthetic, on a puppet. You know, like there's ways, I guess, they would have done it. But that is just one of those scenes that I think... There was this period in the 90s and early 2000s when directors, they probably still do it, don't they, Hugo?
Yeah.
When directors go, I want to see something I've never seen before. And T2 has like 7 of them, you know. So,
I know. And what I love the most about that shot is going through it. The music pumps. Everyone is looking at him. The other guy drops the thing that he has on the mouth, the doctor. And he goes through it. And then it cuts to the gun getting stuck.
Yeah.
It's such
clever.
A brilliant,
really clever.
Really brilliant piece of directing.
Yeah.
Because not only it allows you to cut sooner, because, you know, we're talking about really expensive to render these shots. And so you don't have to stay on the effect for so long because you've seen it already. But then you kind of show, oh yeah, that's right, he can't go through because the gun is not part of him.
Yeah.
It's another part. Now that shot is, I don't know, I even think that even today that would be hard to do.
Well,
even today this would be a hard shot to do.
Back then, ILM made a program called Make Sticky, which I think was meant to be slightly like a what's the word? A bit of innuendo of what they were trying to do. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, essentially it was a way of preserving textures from one frame to another, from one piece of geometry and frame to another. Yeah. And, I mean, we kind of do it with projection mapping now, right? Yeah. So ILM was just thinking differently at the time. In that Tech of T2 oral history, there's a lot more detail about Make Sticky. I would probably just screw up trying to explain how it worked. And it also was very specific to that kind of shot that they needed, where he's touching something and the piece of his geometry or face or body or hand needed to take on certain textures, right, of that thing that he was touching. And there just hadn't been a way to properly do that before. So that's what Make Sticky was about. Yeah,
I know. One thing I must say, do they even go into detail of how this was even made? Like in real sense? Because these days, this shot would be a full CG. You basically would have done a digital version of Robert Patrick's, and you would have done a full CG simulation. And then you would have gone through the bars and basically, I guess, the bar would have collided and would have make those holes in between. Because I think they talk about that on the cinefex and behind the scenes, where the turning point was when they've managed to make a collision system. Because usually 3D, things just go through it.
Sure.
There's nothing like something that... If you're in 3D, and that's one of the biggest problems we have in 3D, sometimes things collide. That still happens in video games, for example, because it doesn't have such a constrained power. But I think that was the pivotal point that they've made there, was the collision system.
Yeah,
so they could cross
probably
it.
Didn't call it that. That's
what we call it now.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, there's just, as I say, there were like 7 or 8 scenarios that T1000 had to go through. What about when he gets shot in the head at the lift and his head splits open?
Yeah.
And like how do you do that? Well, some of it was a Stan Winston animatronic prosthetic thing, but then you actually see it sewing itself up and coming together.
Yeah.
And like No, they didn't have the incredible digital human stuff that we have now. I mean, we don't even have that stuff. We developed things to make that possible. So they were essentially doing projection mapping, right? They've got this footage of Robert Patrick.
And they're projecting it in a piece of geometry.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, but and there other stuff going on too, because there was basically the thing sewing up its head, right? Like this. So they just had to solve it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
This phrase Chan math comes to mind, but God Almighty, I don't even know what it really involved. But I think it was a really fun time at ILM where they would invent some sort of code to do something, and they gave it a name, you know, and so hence Make Sticky and Body Sock and Chan math.
I'm glad you're talking about that specific shot, because that's kind of goes to another conversation I wanted to have with you, which is the method. It was really expensive to do CG at this time, and they had to be as economical as possible because they couldn't really. They had a really tight deadline to deliver the film. The film had to be delivered that summer because the whole thing was already blocked for the cinemas and the trailer was out already. And so they were really smart on when to use Stan Winston's puppets, when to use CG, when to just use really rudimentary things. Like on that thing that you're talking about, yes, that's cool. They had this entire sculpt.
Yeah.
And then the next shot you see the Terminator with the gun, and then the next shot is already going up.
Yeah.
But there's other parts on the film where they're like on the factory, they're fighting, and like Arnold Schwarzenegger puts his hand in, and it's inside the head, and then it glues like this.
Yeah.
But then the next shot, they're fighting, and it's really blurry. And it's literally a guy with a suit.
With a mylar suit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it goes by so fast.
It.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
then the next shot is again CG, because then you see you see him, I think it's with the finger, and so you by doing this thing of having once in a while in CG, once in a while with a puppet, sometimes you could just have a mylar suit. It's really smart because the methodology you're just engrossed into it's almost like there's beats, like it's an action sequence, like action, 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 and then a beat in this amazing shot comes along, and then action, 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 another shot comes along. It was so economical because then in the middle of a sequence, you think it's all CG, but no, maybe there are only 2 shots that were in CG. Everything else is just like make-believe or a different angle or some prosthetic that Stan made, or it's really smart.
And I would say that it works back to what I was saying before, which is ILM had finally found a way to make their CG shots, they were plates, but with CG on them, look like the shots around them.
Yeah.
I'm sure in subsequent films, not just by ILM, with visual effects by ILM, I can remember times where, we've cut to the visual effects shot because the color looked different.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you could see something with the rendering that wasn't right. If somehow in Terminator 2, with the digital compositing that they were using, plus the ingest and output, I'd never felt taken out of the film in terms of those shots. So something worked there. And part of it is it's quite economical. There's only like 150 visual effects shots themselves, right?
Yeah, and so, there's only 30, like I think there's only, I made a note of the stats.
Yeah.
So there's 150 in total, but there's only 33 with the 2000 in CG.
There you go.
So there's only 43 shots.
It's a bit like Jurassic a few years later.
Exactly.
I could get
so the Metal Man only shows up 43 times, but there's 150 shots. So it's like double that. There's probably another 40 shots which were just a mix.
Yeah.
It's funny what you're saying about the whole, like if it holds up. Like the 4K version, which I already complained about, but it's still a nice version, although it's denoised. Most VFX shots hold up.
Okay.
Even in 4K. And I was quite impressed by that. I was like, shit, this stuff was so well made that it still holds up as a 4K.
Well, and they were only delivering less than 2K, right?
I know,
or
but
2K maybe.
But it was so well blurred and so well combined and so well merged and so well matched that even if you blow it up to 4K, it still works.
Yeah.
There's only one shot that doesn't work, that does exactly what you just said. The color is different.
Right.
And
Which one?
It's when he gets, right at the very beginning, when we first have when Arnold is on the corridor, he has the flowers, and then he starts shooting the T-1000 for the first time. And he gets hit, and then he goes to the floor.
Yeah.
And then you see the holes morphing.
They're a little bit purple.
Yes.
And they also feels too much like it's a still frame of Robert Patrick.
Exactly. And the morph is that you just see the stretch.
Yeah.
You don't see an actual morph. You don't see the actual liquid. You just see it's like a morph. And morphing has never looked very good. I think that's the only shot that doesn't hold up on the movie, you know.
You just mentioned morphing.
Yeah.
Which is a really interesting part of this film, actually. Because in the film, the T-1000 morphs many times, but ILM used a whole bunch of different ways to do morphing. So sometimes when he's going from different states of the T-1000 to other states, that isn't morphing. It's, basically what we would call blend shaping now, right?
Yeah.
But there are other times when he takes on the appearance of, say, John's step or foster mother.
Yeah.
Or when at the end, when he's dying in the vat of stuff and they morph between the characters. Or he's fighting the T-800 and he reverses from, like he goes from inside out.
Yeah, he goes through,
ILM did use its MORF toolset that was originally developed by Doug Smythe for Willow, and then was really like this little bit of this secret weapon ILM had for many years, to fix shots, to do fun transitions. But I think ILM was always very conscious that there were multiple types of morphing going on in the film, and they wanted to kind of push that it was more computer graphics morphy than 2D morphy. Yeah. But it's really interesting. Someone, a very famous visual effects supervisor at ILM called John Burton Jr., who went on to do The Mummy and Mummy 2 and lots of other films. He was the guy who became really good with MORF, morph, and was always asked to do these morphing shots. And I think after a while, not just on T2, but he got a bit sick of them because he was like, am I just the morph guy? Which he said recently in a podcast.
It's a morph guy.
Well, so funny. But I just thought it was like just this other tool in ILM's arsenal.
Yeah.
It's 2D morphing, right? That's MORF. But some of the other morphing was more like, blend shapes essentially, because it was computer graphics rather than 2D. Yeah. But the morphing side of this film, apart from the T-1000, the morphing side of the film is probably what a lot of people will remember, especially after the foster mother stabs Todd with the milk carton and then puts a hand down. Yeah. I mean, that's actually a mix of techniques, right?
Another great shot where they only have really 2 CG shots. There's only 2 shots of CG. Well, actually just one, because one is just the sound. So smart. You don't even see it. You only look at her and you hear the sound. Yeah. And then they cut and they travel, and that's just a prosthetic from Stan.
Yeah.
And it's a prosthetic which is... the metal is to the milk cart, and then there's like an attachment to Todd's face.
Yes.
Which gives you the back plate. And then when they take it out, it has a string. It has like a spring that the back plate just goes in when it comes out, and that's why it drops to the floor.
Yep.
And then we finally have the CG shot, which is when it morphs to the hand, and then subsequently morphs to Robert again. So it's like really smart, because that entire sequence only has one CG shot.
It's amazing.
It's you look at it and you think you've seen more CG shots.
Yes. Even the fire shot is a relatively simple thing that happens, right? And there's a mix there of what I think Spaz once told me was shape interpolation, which I don't feel like we ever say that in visual effects, really. I think we say blend shaping, depending on what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But so a mix of shape interpolation there to go between the blobby T1000, but then some morphing to bring him into Robert Patrick live action, right? So as ILM really did do and does do in its work, I feel like they use multiple techniques to fool the audience, and you're sort of amazed by what you've seen, and then you're like, but how did they do that?
It's like the magician. I'm so glad that you talked about morph, because I think morphing still to this day is really hard. And I'm not surprised that what was his name? The guy, the morph guy?
John Burton Jr.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that he became the morph guy, because morphing even still today is incredibly hard.
I think after T2, and then also after Michael Jackson's Black or White, which was the morphing sequence, and that was done by PDI with its own tool, morphing tool, arguably more successful than ILM's tool, although not used as much as ILM's tool. I think what the problem is that there was some very bad morphs done.
Yeah.
And there was this very famous tool called elastic reality.
And it's normal that there are bad ones, because if you don't understand tempo, if you don't understand animation and anatomy, you do a bad morph. You morph from the wrong place. Like you morph a nose to the eye, or you morph the mouth to the other eye. It just doesn't hold up.
I think they just got a bit cheap looking and just look like in-betweening without sort of a subtle artistic eye to them. Yeah.
Of course, now it's so much, I don't want to use the word easy, because it's not easy, but it's so much more, by doing it with 3D or doing it with a simulation, it just becomes a lot less complicated, because you can get the computer to sort out how the in-between would be. Yeah. And so you can literally morph the object. The CG itself would anatomically stretch and basically inflate to fill those gaps. And so it's just a different thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you which morphing I can never quite believe is so successful is in Terminator 2, which is when the T1000 is screaming in the vat of molten metal, and it is changing shapes with what seems to be pieces of molten metal going in front of all these characters like liquid, and then it's still managing to do the morphing. So ILM either just solved that with some incredible frame-by-frame work, or they were really clever about adding extra splashes. It's so convincing. It totally looks like they're actually transforming between characters there. I've always loved the morphing in that final sequence.
And that final sequence was the longest sequence to be done in the movie. So it took the longest to make. They were still working on it a few weeks before it went to print. So because it lasted so long, it was so complicated, they spent weeks and weeks and weeks working on that shot. It was, as I read in interviews and at Cinefex, like it was one of the first shots they started, and it was the last shot to deliver. So it was because it was so complicated. Because you have, not only you have all those morphs, but then you also have the CG simulation of him opening into himself, the mouth going in.
That was super cool too.
It kind of rotates, kind of goes inwards or something.
And they went there, I think. They needed a way to kill the T1000 that looked completely different than what we'd already seen in terms of him getting injured or whatever. And I thought that was a nice horror way to do it, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Whew. Okay, there's actually a lot of other T1000 stuff, and we probably can't get to it. But I think the film is full of visual effects from not just ILM, Hugo.
No.
I love the opening war stuff that was done by Fantasy 2 Film Effects, a company that often liaised with James Cameron, I think on Aliens and possibly True Lies, but definitely Titanic, and here on Terminator 2. And it's like, when you look at the behind the scenes for how they were doing the opening future war battle, it's like super old school. It's like optical, it's miniatures and then old school compositing and like drawing in the laser blasts and stuff. Like it's very
and rear projection. Sometimes.
Like it's often
they call it something else. They didn't call it rear projection. It's so cool. They call it processed screens.
Right.
It's just so strange.
But it was a nice contrast.
We didn't have the lingo still at that time, you know. It was,
I guess so.
Yeah.
It was a nice contrast to like ILM's super future, you know, CG stuff for the T1000. But I've always loved that future battle. It felt very raw and real.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
And famously, it was so complicated and so expensive that it famously costed more than the first film.
Oh,
that
okay.
entire sequence.
Yeah.
The budget for it was more than the first film, which I'm not surprised because that, if you look back at the original war sequences were done also with the same company. They were also very good, but this is a step further. And not only you have those miniatures and you have the reprojections and you have the laser tracing, but then you have these amazing T-800s walking around. These massive, like with their feet and moving around and shooting with two guns, and they look so real.
It's some of Stan Winston's best puppeteering work, isn't it?
I know, and it's all puppet. Like it's and they made a bunch of them. They made 4 main ones. They had like 2 hero ones, which were fully animatronic, and then they had 2 more that were basically in pose, and they could set them as they wanted. But it's like picking up the originals. Of course, they still look like the original film, but it's like so much more finessed.
They look very crisp in that sequence, don't they?
Super crisp and super beautiful and super well made, and the eyes looking at you, and also the animation tempo, like it's not robotic at all, like he's moving really fluidly. I think at the time I was really shocked by it because we were so used to stop animation, and this is not stop animation at all. It's just...
I never quite thought in the first film, and I know it was a super low budget indie thing, the stop motion endoskeleton I never quite was convincing, mainly because of the rear projection or front projection side of the work. But the animation was cool, but integrating it into shots with Sarah Connor didn't quite work. Totally. I'm just thinking in my head about that future war sequence and getting like nostalgic about it. I also loved, there's another big miniature effect sequence in the film, which is the nuclear blast.
Yeah, it's my favorite
of
shot.
LA.
It's my favorite part of the film. That entire sequence is my favorite part.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was handled.
The whole thing from her going to the children and then the blast. That's just
the blast of her on the fence is iconic.
That entire sequence.
And then losing her skin. I mean, I think that's a Stan Winston thing of blowing air and, you know, whatever they had to do that. But then the actual miniature blast was done by 4 Ward Productions, another collaborator with James Cameron.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever got to the bottom yet, and I have to reread Cinefex about who actually did the nuclear explosion and the digital compositing there, because it's not an ILM thing. But it may have been 4 Ward doing, you know, getting some digital artists in to do it. But I always loved it.
It's called Forward Production. It's Forward, but also there was another name on Cinefex. I can't find it now. I'll put it on the screen if I find it later. But there was another name there on the article.
Yeah.
But that it's my favorite sequence. Like, she goes out, then she's looking at the kids playing, and then the puppet burning, like there's like this Sarah Connor that just spontaneously combusts. I'm not talking about the one on the fence. I'm talking just at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
She starts burning, and then her younger version also starts burning, and all the kids start burning.
Yeah.
And then you see the kind of like with the blast, it kind of just goes away. It's so scary. It's so scary, especially because they burn first and then they die after, and then they explode. And
Did you ever think, though, when some of that wind blast hit the miniature traffic, when you rewatch that, It does look a little bit like a miniature.
It
but
does.
because of the music and the pace of it,
You don't
and
think about it.
and you recognize LA, it's very, very convincing and beautifully done.
Here's the thing about it, because I don't think they could have ever done it any better. So they did 8 takes of this.
Right.
Of this explosion. It was shot, of course, it had to be in one take because it all falls apart.
Yeah.
And so they did it 8 times with 3 cameras at the same time to film all of it. And it was a mixture of cables pulling parts, wind cannons, and also a lot of cereal. They had like a lot of painted cereals to fly through the debris. And whenever they had to do a new take, it took 2 days to reset.
Yeah.
It took them 2 days to rebuild the whole thing again.
Yeah.
And they did it 8 times.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God. It's like that's
Crazy.
at least almost a month of just shooting that thing.
Yeah.
The scariest part of that was hearing James Cameron on the commentary saying that he was contacted by some nuclear scientists. He was contacted.
Right.
And they told him that was the most realistic depiction of a nuclear explosion ever made on film. Because they said that usually movies in Hollywood may do it wrong. The explosion happens and everything goes to berserk. It just goes and explodes. The fact that first the people burn alive and then the explosion happens.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happens in reality.
Yeah.
And it's even more scary because if a nuclear blast comes down, you first get cooked alive, you get boiled alive, burning from the radiation, and then the explosion happens. It's like, it's horrible. It's just absolutely horrifying to think about it. And that sequence, it really traumatized me when I was very young. That was so scary.
I remember that the most in
it.
some ways. Yeah.
Because it's just horrific, an horrific sequence.
Hugo, there's almost too much in this film to talk about.
I know.
But what are some of your other like super memorable moments?
I mean, I know it's not on the movie. I'm a big fan of the special edition. I must say, because I like some of the sequences. I just don't like the ending of the special edition. That I don't like the ending. But I love the garage scene. The garage scene when they're taking the chip out. And I really struggle why they took it out, because it would have really helped the story to see that scene.
I'm glad they didn't keep that in, because I think it answers too many things about whether he's can be made good or bad, right?
Okay.
But then also, I'm glad they didn't keep in other deleted scenes of like the T-1000 glitching, because then we would be like, well, he's just about to die. You see a bit of glitching. You see a bit of glitching, but in the deleted scenes, he's like gets stuck. His hand gets stuck to the rail.
Some really good shots, though.
I like when he does that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's some cool shots, though.
It's really super cool shots. But I'm glad I can see why Jim Cameron cut them out.
Yeah.
But the taking the chip out has become this very famous sequence in effects history.
Yeah.
So why is that, Hugo?
Well, because I didn't know this at all when I first saw the special edition. When I saw the first special edition, I mean, there are a lot of mirror famous shots, of course, like Contact, and a lot of really famous mirror shots. But until like, maybe 10 years ago, I never even knew how this was done.
Right, we should explain what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Sarah Connor is operating inside Arnie's head, but we're seeing a reflection of it as well.
Yeah,
while it's
which
happening.
Means we should have seen the camera. We should have seen the crew. Of course, these days we have films like this all the time, but they just paint out the crew.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But of course, it was not possible to clean up the rule in '91. They just don't have the technology to do such advanced cleanup. So what did they do? It's so clever. They basically do a replica set on the other side.
Yes.
With the exact same background, the same set. There's, of course, another person playing Sarah Connor on the other side, which turns out to be the twin sister, Sarah Connor, which is like, and of course we have a puppet of Stan Winston on the front, and then Arnold on the other side. So it's a really complex synchronization.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's a really complicated. I'm sure it took a few takes.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe Jim cut it out because maybe he felt like it didn't mirror
Didn't
image.
work.
I mean, he's never said that, has he? But I mean, maybe that's one reason. But it's super fun to watch in the deleted scenes.
It is.
And I feel like it influenced a bunch of filmmakers over the years to create their own kind of mirror sequence that looks like an impossible shot.
Yeah.
One of the Mission Impossibles has something like that when they're putting a face mask over one of the characters. And I think they still use a tiny bit of digital visual effects there to help that. But yeah, that deleted scene and the double Linda's, or her twin sister, is super cool. I assume her twin sister was also in the scene where the T-1000 has replicated Sarah Connor.
That's right. Yeah, right. It is her as well. She shows up a few times on the film at the end as well. Yeah. It's so cool to find out. But that shot with the mirror is really, it's a really smart, really like old-fashioned method of doing a shot like this. It's almost like this is a shot that they would have thought to do in like the 60s or something, with no aid of visual effects whatsoever. And it's so clever. Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about Sarah Connor being at the end as well. I guess it's a theme on this movie. There's another twin on this movie as well.
Right, yeah.
The scene when we have the T-1000 coming out of the floor, which is a really... We haven't talked about it, but it's a really famous scene as well.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really famous scene as well. It's the same thing. That guard has a twin brother as well. And they use a twin brother to try to minimize the visual effects. Of course, there's like a cutaway with the rubber...
Full house. What is it? Is that what he says? I can't remember.
No.
And then he sees his twin.
But then when he...
Should have been an actor,
when he yes, I think so. When he spikes him, you kind of see that it's a rubber
maybe,
you know, but it still looks cool. I still think it looks really cool.
Okay, I love that deleted scene shot. I've got two final shots that I want to just quickly mention.
Okay.
The one of Arnie T-800 in the LA River jumping down into the canal.
Oh yeah.
On his motorbike is amazing stunt, which involves cable cam, wire work, and then some incredible wire removal stuff by PDI. ILM actually had done a bunch of wire removal things in Back to the Future and Howard the Duck and Back to the Future 2 and Howard the Duck. And I'm curious why PDI came on to do that, but it was a very complex shot and it makes the stunt look incredible, right?
I know.
So I think that's such a killer shot in the film.
Yeah.
My final favorite shot I want to mention is once Arnie comes up the ramp and shoots the big gun at the T-1000 and he just forms into this spindly, weird character about to fall into the vat, which I think they call Pretzel Man.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
That looks CG. It doesn't look CG, but for probably a few years, when I first was watching the film, I probably thought it was an ILM creation. No, it's a Stan Winston puppet, and with the face of Robert Patrick going.
It's so good.
It's brilliant.
It's so well made.
One of the best puppet animatronic things in the film, actually. Yeah. So they're the two I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you're talking about that cleanup shot of the wire. We had this conversation offline because they keep referring to this shot, the wire removal, as the first wire removal visual effect shot.
Yeah.
It shows up on the documentary, it shows up on the Blu-ray, and even Dennis Mirren is talking about that. James Cameron talks about it on the... I think somehow they are trying to canonize this as the first wire removal shot, but it's not.
Well,
I'm not sure why this is happening.
I don't think it is the first wire removal shot because I'm sure that Howard the Duck is known for the first one.
Yeah, it can't be.
Yeah. Look, it's one of the most complicated. Let's put that out there because it's a moving camera, and if you see the plate, you can see the bike is on this crazy kind of rigging, so it's not a simple wire. Yeah.
You've talked about your favorite shots. I don't think I have anything else that I would like to reference as a favorite shot, but I really wanted to like talk about the really funny thing that I discovered when I was researching for this show, and I just wanted to like maybe mention that at the end. When they're shooting the biker sequence on the beginning, when he goes into the biker bar, and I want your clothes, your boots, your motorcycle.
Yeah,
you forgot to say please. When he goes there, that actually was a bar that was just a normal bar. And what the production was the production wanted a lot of bikers. And so they put an ad out, we need a lot of bikers. We need bikers to come in as stand-ins. And we need people to dress as bikers. And we need a lot of bikes outside. And a lot of people came in to do that so they could be stand-ins. And while they were shooting this, Arnold Schwarzenegger was like on shorts, on these Hawaiian, really ridiculous shorts, but of course, he looks so ridiculous because of course
he's not nude.
No, because most of the shots you don't really see. Torso. You just see torso, and they're in the middle of a take, and then this woman, kind of semi-drunk, just walks into the bar.
Oh,
as a customer, while they're doing a take, they're filming, and she just walks in and asks for a drink at the bar, and then looks around, looks at all the lights, and looks like, what's going on here? What's going on? Just looking around, and Arnold turns to her and says, "Oh, it's a strip male day." It just answers her that it's a striptease joint. It does. This is true, man.
I've never seen this.
This is a story mentioned on the cast and crew commentary by the costume designer.
Wow.
She talks about this.
That's awesome. Okay, since you've mentioned the bar, I do remember this from a few years ago with the re-release, or was the 4K DVD or whatever it was, that Jim Cameron did go in and fix a few shots in the film, right?
Oh, no.
And maybe more than we realized, but one of them was in the bar. I think Arnie gets stabbed by a knife, by one of the bikers. And if you slow it down frame by frame, you can see it's a rubber knife. Not a retractable knife, but like a rubber knife.
Yeah, you can see
I think it's made more knifey.
Okay.
There's another part of that.
But this was like from the cinema to the DVD, or is it later on?
I think it's relatively recent fix.
Okay, then I need to go and check because I have. This is the 99 DVD.
Okay, you know what you have to do for this podcast?
Because this is
we
99.
want side by side, Hugo.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if the 99 version. I have the VHS version as well, so I'm going to go and look.
Okay,
I'm going to look as well.
There's another thing that I don't know if they fixed it actually, but you can tell when you watch it. One of the bikers, doesn't he put his hands on the hot plate in the kitchen?
Oh, yeah.
And the steam, you can see that there's a jet ejecting the steam out. I don't think they could fix it. But that's a really funny thing to look out for as well.
Okay. I'll look on the 4K if they fix it. Maybe they took it out. The 4K version is really strange. Like the whole thing, their faces are very treated.
Yeah.
You actually don't have a lot of wrinkles. They look very processed. So I need to look if there's other differences things as well.
I think the only other thing that I know about that Jim Cameron fixed was in the Canal chase, which is incredible. At one point, doesn't the T-1000 push out the windscreen after the top gets hit off by going over going under the underpass? And I think in like one of the scenes, it's back on, right? Like in the original film. So then they kick it off. But there's probably other fixes. I'd love for people to chime in and tell us if they've seen some other fixes in the film.
Yeah, sure.
That's just part of the T2 lore, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's such there's so many parts of this movie that we did not talk about. And I feel like this movie is so filled with practical projection systems, miniatures, visual effects. This is one of the last movies that has everything, really. It has really everything. because it's this transition phase. And so we could spend hours and hours talking about it, but we are not to. We're not going to do that.
We'll wrap it up, but that was really fun. And thanks everyone for taking the time to listen to us talk, and also to hear us try and do the theme tune from Mission Impossible, from T2. Which I am obsessed with, actually. Brad Fiedel, the composer.
Yeah, it's really good. Even the first film, it was already very good.
Yeah,
so it was
good.
It's also such a different soundtrack, such a different type of soundtrack to a film like this.
Yeah, electronic.
Because it usually is an orchestral soundtrack, or it's actually quite good.
I think about it a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Hugo. That was really fun. See ya.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.